G'day and welcome back. Today I have a Swiss radio. The brand name is Biennophone. The schematics I have are in German. Bien is good in French, so Biennophone, good sound or something like that. I really don't know what it means because I don't speak any of these languages. It's only a tiny radio. It's got long wave, medium wave, short wave and FM. And it's got this, I don't know what that is, TRTD. Tape recorder? No, I don't know what that is. Both of those down will be, it's popped up, gram. So you can't, no, that's a selection, isn't it? It's something, I'm not sure what that is. It's got a volume control here, off. Oh, okay. So you can't turn it off here, you got to turn it off up here. So off, and I think that says speaker volume anyway, that'll be volume. It's got sender, I guess that's tuning. You can see down the end here the speaker grill's pushed in. It should be on an angle. And it's quite discoloured too, so I'll try some RetrObright on it. If that doesn't work, I'll just have to paint it. This was sent to me by my friend Blitz Roehre in Germany. He has a YouTube channel. I've featured him before. He also sent me that cute little Romanian radio last year. So he sent me this radio. He also included a load of other stuff, and it was tubes for the Eris radio. Some European tubes I couldn't get. There's a couple of other things that I'll showcase on later videos. He also sent me this miniature soldering iron. It's going to be really good for doing small stuff like small transistor radios. So this will be terrific. Blitz hasn't had a lot of spare time due to work lately. He hasn't put a lot of new video stuff up, but the stuff he's got on there is pretty interesting. He does very, very good work. I'll leave a link below in the description, and if you want to go and check his channel out, please do. I think that's enough of the front. Let's have a look in the back. There's the back, and very tight in there. I believe this is from 1963. I didn't say that. So this is about 1963. They've gone on to using PC boards. It's missing the back panel as well. I can make a new one, so that's no problem at all. A bit hard to see, but there's a tiny little speaker up the front there. Voltages it runs at, it looks like 125, 150 and 220, which is the European voltage. I don't have the back, so I'm not sure what all these are. That'll be FM because I can see the FM module there, so that'll be the FM antenna. That'll probably be AM antenna. No idea. No idea. Tape recorder in maybe? Don't know. Maybe gram there, and external speaker goes there. There's a fuse as well. A couple of germanium diodes there. That'll be the detector for the FM, and it's a ratio detector because they are facing in different directions. I can't even guess what that is. It may balance the FM detector, but it's usually done with a coil, so yeah, I'm not sure. I can also see a new capacitor over on the right there. I've only got one knob, and it's the small one that goes on the front of the little shafts there. Blitz has sent me all the dimensions I need to make new knobs. Apparently he went to some museum somewhere and they measured the knobs up for him, and then he sent it all to me. As I said, Blitz is an amazing man. And even the guy in the museum, I mean, it's amazing. He took the time to pull up knobs off a radio they had on display and measure them all up. Oh, he's also sent me a picture of the back. Oh, that's good. They'll be able to use that as a template. There was also this ECL86 floating around in the packaging. So that's the triode pentode output valve. I'll take this out of the case and I'll see what I'm up against. I've taken it out of the case. The first thing I noticed is the FM valve doesn't have a shield on it. That normally would have a shield on it. There's a socket for the output valve, and that's probably the bypass cap for the cathode. It has Phillips capacitors in it, so it may not have to do much as far as changing those capacitors. There's that big filter capacitor. I think it says 50 and 50 microfarad. There's the tuning shaft, and I think the AM and FM probably tune at the same time. There's no split in the shaft. Oh, and looking at that, there's only one indicator. It's one piece. For the FM tuning, I can see the little permeability tuning slug going in and out on the back there. The fact that that tube is missing its shield, the back is missing, the screws underneath were loose, I'm going to suspect this doesn't work. I'll put this output valve back in. I'm going to plug it in and see what happens. I'm ready to power it up. I will leave it on dim bulb. I'm not going to put it on full power. I've had to put a knob on. Oh, actually, I'll turn that on a bit. I guess we're going to put it on medium wave, and I'll put some power, and I've got a 220 volts, which is what it's rated at. It's on dim bulb, it won't go to 220. The light bulb hasn't come on at all. The little light bulb in the front there's come on. There's no smoke coming out. What are we looking at there? About 19 watts. Yeah, that's not bad. I can hear something. It's working. Huh. Should have put the knob on this one. Yeah, it works. I'm getting down. What have we got there? 201. It's not pulling a lot of power at all. So the voltage hasn't dropped a great deal going through the bulb. 22 watts, that's pretty reasonable. I'll move the antenna over to FM, see if we get anything there. Oops. No, it's got the noises. So it all works. So why was it all undone and partly missing? Huh. There's not even any hum. The smoothing cap's working. Oh, okay. There's nothing to do. I'll obviously check everything out. I will replace the smoothing cap, of course. This capacitor here is probably shot for the cathode bypass. There'll also be a capacitor in the FM detector. One thing I didn't do was look underneath. I'll have a look at that. There's the bottom of it, and it's pretty sparse. The PC board has removed all that point-to-point wiring, so very neat inside. I can see a selenium rectifier on the end there. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get a replacement filter capacitor in there. I might have to try and restuff that vertical one. That's going to be interesting. It's not very big. Overall, it looks very neat and clean, so there's not a lot to do under there. I'll leave this for now. In the morning I'll take it out to the workshop. I'll go and clean everything up as best I can. But before I do, I'll take this dial glass out so I don't break it. And after that I'll come back and do some checking and change some components. I've done the cleaning. It needs a little bit more work done to get it perfectly clean. I'll just keep doing that as I work on the radio. But the majority of it's done, and that'll do for now. The piano keys polished up very nicely. Now, speaking of piano keys, this TRTD button has me intrigued, and I've done a little bit of research. These 2 points here are the mystery terminals on the back. I wasn't sure what they were. It's these ones here next to the aerial, and there's the aerial input there. So it's virtually another input, and it goes through some coils and ends up going into the grid of the mixer. So it wasn't going to be a tape recorder, anything like that input. That would go straight into the amplifier. So I did a bit of searching on the internet and finally found something, and it explained it as a line transmission, and it was in Switzerland, Germany, Norway, I think, USSR. They used to send a radio signal down the telephone line. So you would plug your telephone line into these 2 points here, would have had a bellum or some sort of separator there, and you would plug it in there, and you could tune it on the long wave range, I think. This is the long wave frequency markings on the dial, and I saw that when I was cleaning it, and it said HFTR. I looked at the other end and it said TDHF. That's why I started to investigate. Why is it up there? What they used to do is use it on the long wave scale, and I believe you could tune along, and the signal coming in on the telephone lines would have various stations along the way, and you could tune them in. I think that's how it worked. It's very sketchy on the internet exactly how it did work. So that's the story of those 2 inputs, and I believe because Switzerland is so mountainous, it was difficult to get a good signal across the mountains and into the valleys. So with this idea, if someone had a telephone line, they could at least get a radio signal. Another thing that had me puzzled was this variable resistor on the back of the radio. So I followed it up and I found it, and here it is. This is the ratio detector. There's the 2 little black diodes that are on the back there, and there's the trimmer there. Now there's a corresponding resistor up here, and there's a trimmer here. The coil here is trimmable as well, and that's what you would normally use to balance this two sides of the ratio detector. I have no idea what you do with that to balance it. So there must be a point where you measure it and get a belt. I really don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. I'll have to go and look that up somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to find info on it. Here's the FM electrolytic capacitor, and that's the little one that they've changed. Now the FM sounds a bit distorted, and I don't know if they've just changed it and haven't balanced it again. That'll be something I've got to look at. I might even change that again anyway. Another electrolytic I need to change is this one. This is a bypass capacitor for the cathode of the output valve. I'll replace that. That's the orange one up on top of the chassis. There's one of the filter capacitors, and there's another one somewhere up here. There it is. So I'll change those two as well. So only those 4 electrolytics to replace. I'll check some resistor values, make sure they're okay. But apart from that, change the capacitors and just check the alignment. This morning I'm going to replace the capacitors. Something I forgot to mention. This ECC85 FM valve doesn't have a shield on it. I put one on the other day to test the radio, but I looked on the internet for a photo to see if this actually had a shield or not, and I found this one, and it looks pretty obvious that it doesn't actually have a shield on it. So it's not supposed to have a shield. Okay, I'll leave it as it is. These are pretty sensitive to outside interference, so they decided it didn't need it. Okay, I won't put one on. Okay, to start on the capacitors, this one here is the cathode bypass for the output valve. I'll replace that. I have a very strong torch or flashlight if you like, and that's shining through the board, and I can x-ray and find where that capacitor is. There it is there. One end is going there. I don't think it's coming up in the camera, but it's going there, and the other end is down here on this point here. So I'll use the solder sucker. We should be able to just take that out there, and this one here. The positive end is at this end, and with a bit of luck this should come out. There it is. Yep, the other end didn't let go. Alright, I'll go underneath and just let that go and remove that capacitor. Just for giggles, I've got the capacitor mounted in this multi-function tester. Let's see what it says. No, it's unknown. Really. Oh, so it can't even read it. I'll try it in my capacitor tester that's a bit more competent than the other one. It's supposed to be 100 and it's 100, so there's probably nothing wrong with that. I've bent the legs to match the old capacitor, so it should fit in. There you go. Alright, I'll flip that over and solder it in, and that one will be done. I wasn't going to show me soldering these in, but I thought I'll use my little soldering iron that Blitz sent me. I'll see how it goes. There's some wires there I need to miss, which I would no doubt hit if I'd used my other soldering iron. There we go. How about that? Let's try it on this one. That worked well on that one. I didn't burn anything. Thanks, Blitz. While I'm in the area, I'll take out the filter capacitor. That's it there with the X-ray. That's a ground. That's a ground. There must be a pin there for ground. That's a positive, and that one is the positive of the two 50 microfarad capacitors. So I'll just unsolder those, take it out, and we'll have a look at it. Here's the capacitor, and it's a Hunt's brand capacitor that would send shivers down the spine of most repairers. It's 50 by 50, 350 volts, so there's two capacitors in there. There's one there and one there. There's the ground. I've done a lot of these capacitor restuffing, so I'm not going to show it again. I will try and just remove this plastic, oh, there we go, from this end, and I'll cut this off as I always do, or grind it off, and pull the stuffings out. So I'll go and do that. I'll come back, and we'll try and put these new ones back in there. I've hollowed out the can, so I'm ready to restuff the capacitor. I've made up a couple of little capacitors here. They're 47 microfarad. They're rated at 450 volts this time, and they'll simply just fit in there. As usual, I've printed out a little holder for the bottom capacitor, so that will fit in there. It has a gap in it so that I can squeeze it down and fit it inside the container and get over this ridge. I have my little wedge in there that'll keep that open while I put the capacitor in. And I'll pull it out and it'll grip the capacitor now. I can slide it down. This capacitor is a bit different. It's got the ground wire running on the outside of the can. So I've drilled a little hole in the side of the can here. And I'm going to attempt to get the earth wire that I have attached to my capacitors through that little hole. There it is. That's worked out alright. Alright, so I just need to put this cap on, and I've drilled two little tiny holes in this one too. Alright, I'll finish that off. I'll go outside into the workshop and I'll roll that between a couple of bits of wood like I always do. I'll solder these little wires onto the tabs and I'll reinstall it in the radio. I've reinstalled that capacitor. The radio's running very well. The AM is running perfectly. The FM not quite so well. I checked the resistors out. Typically they're all reading high. They're not so bad that I'm going to worry about it. They're probably higher than what you'd normally get, but they're still just on the 10%, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to leave them in there. The only resistors I'm going to worry about are the ones in the ratio detector. There's two here, and that's these two here, the load resistors. And there's another one around the back behind this variable resistor, and that's that one there. So I'll change those three to start with, because it's useless trying to balance this if these are not the same as each other. So let me take those out and we'll have a look at them. I flipped the chassis over. There's the two resistors there, those load resistors. That is the trimmable resistor. So that's the other one behind it. So I'll take these three out and we can test those. This is where the resistors go in the ratio detector. So these ones should be 15K. So if I put my clip on there, and we've got 19.3. So that's a little bit high. The other one, this should be a bit lower, I think. 17.77. And this one is supposed to be 470 ohms. And it's 567. So yeah, I also removed this capacitor here. Here it is. I was worried it might be a tantalum. It came out with the resistors, so I'll check it. I've got the meter on 20 nanofarad, so this should be 5.6. And yeah, it's 5. That's close enough for me. So I guess it's okay. I'll put it back. I've soldered all those components in. I've got some power on. Let's see if it works. Now it's not aligned, so it may not sound any better. I have to keep turning that off. It's not going to sing. So if I talk over it, they shouldn't get a copyright strike. Oh, there is. No, it's just instrumental. Oh, it's finished.
100.3 Bay FM. Just great music.
Wow, it sounds better and it's not aligned. It was quite distorted before, so that's helped a lot. Wow, that almost doesn't need aligning. I'll set this up to do the FM alignment. The AM I'm not going to worry about. It's perfect. It's perfect on the dial. It sounds fantastic. I'm not going to touch that. The FM I need to play with because somebody's been fiddling with it, and I want to change that little black capacitor as well. I was setting up to do the alignment and I thought I better get a tool to adjust the cores here, and I noticed that this coil here is loose. You can rotate it, so it's become detached inside somewhere. Here's the outline of the IF can in the bottom here. It has a tab at each end. If I desolder those, I think the can will come off. I'll try and hold this core down while I lift it off. Oh, there it goes. So that's not being restrained at all, and even this one's loose. Yeah, I'm not going to adjust that, so I'm not going to concern myself too much with that. This is the one I need to worry about. Now it's got some masking tape here. Oops, there's a wire attached to the tape. Don't break that. There it is. It looks like, yeah, that wire's broken there now. Must have broken it when I pulled the tape. Anyway, we can fix that. How do we stop this moving? It's just that plastic former there, and it's plugged into the plastic base. So I'm not sure, it was just a friction fit to start with. If I put a drop of super glue on there and there's no wax there, that should glue it back in. I've got some super glue. I'll just try and drop it in. I've got the radio on a bit of an angle here so I can make it run in. It's not going to run in. Anyway, that should be enough. I've cleaned the enamel off this wire, so I'll just solder it back on. And I can see another wire behind that's also come off, so I'll have to go and do that as well. I'll reassemble this and I'll continue with the alignment. I've set everything up to do the alignment. I'm only going to do a hybrid or a partial alignment, and I'm going to use a couple of different methods. All I need to do is adjust this discriminator, if you like, or the second IF, and get that at 10.7. I've got 10.7 coming in from the generator there, and I'm actually going in through a 0.01 capacitor into the grid of the mixer valve. I've got the meter here, I've got it on AC volts. All I'm doing is plugging straight into the speaker. I'm just tapping that off the speaker. Alright, so I can adjust that. It's dropping off there. Dropping off there. It's fine about the centre. That seems to be about it there, I think. So that'll do. The next thing to do is to adjust the secondary on that transformer there, or the discriminator if you like. And I'm going to replace the capacitor here before I do anything. So I'll chuck that in and come back. The new capacitor's in. All I'm going to do is peak this and peak that, and then we'll put it on the oscilloscope. Well, that's actually exactly where it should be. I'll try this one. Oh, not having much effect. In fact, it's having no effect. Alright, put it back where it was. Alright, I'll put it on the oscilloscope. Let's do this ratio detector discriminator if you like. I've got the scope set up, and I've got the generator that Vern, the radio mechanic, sent me. It's a sweep generator, and it has a marker built in. So I've got a 10.7 crystal in there at the moment. If I turn this up, we can see the marker. Now if I turn up the pattern, we might get an S curve. We've got something that should be close. Yeah, it's reasonably close. So what we need is that line there to be linear and the little marker to be in around the center there. I'm interested to see what this does. I'm sure it's going to affect it. Oh, there it goes. Alright, we'll adjust this now and see what effect that has. Yeah, we're losing the linearity there. So that actually was pretty close. Try this again. And this should move the marker down. There's a little lump in. Oh, there it is. Oh no, I'm at the end of travel. But just off the end of travel is. No, I nearly need to go a bit further up. I'll stick it there. See if we can move this down this way. There we go. That's better. Now that's actually pretty good. That is reasonably straight. That's in the center, and it's in the center of the screen. Actually, it's pretty good. This straight line here is the return for the sweep. I can't blank that out. I think the earlier one he sent me, you could blank that, but you can't do it on this one. But I think I'm happy with that. I'm not going to change that anymore. I reckon that's pretty good. I'll connect an antenna. We'll see if this actually works. I've connected the AM antenna to the FM antenna there, so we should get something. Sounds mighty fine. We won't get much else along. There's another Christian thing down the end here.
Back to the wall, looking for a way out on the edge, headed for a breakdown. Fear and guilt, it's
Sounds good. That sounds good. I don't think I'm going to do anything else. I really just wanted to trim up the 2 IF transformers in there and adjust that little resistor on the back, and it's back up and running. As I said, the AM works perfectly, so I'm not going to do anything with that. Also worth noting, I put some hot glue around the top here. I wasn't confident that super glue was working, and I think those wires broke when I was trying to turn this, and it turned the whole assembly. I don't think I broke it taking the tape off. You might be thinking, why didn't he do the whole alignment in the FM? But that's exactly why, because you touch something and it breaks. If it's working, sometimes you just got to walk away and accept that it works as it is. Now the only other thing I need to do is to do the RF alignment. I'm all set up to do the adjustment. I've put the dial plate back on. I'll just tune to pick up the local station here. There it is. Now that's a bit out because that's 100.3, that station, and the dial is here, so it's a little bit out, so I'll have to adjust it. This is the FM module. Now I don't have any information on how to adjust any of this. There's no data on adjusting this radio, but there's 2 little adjusters there. They're the FM intermediate frequency adjusters. They take the signal from within this module and couple it to the mixer valve. I'll have to work it out. That's probably the oscillator there. That's probably the one we need to adjust. And there's a few more up the other end here. The dotted line here represents the FM module. There's those 2 IF transformer adjustments I just looked at. I think that one is the oscillator adjustment I just pointed to. This is the oscillator section using the triode half of the ECC85. The other triode half does the antenna section, and there's the adjustment for the antenna. There's another adjustment up here. This is the dipole antenna coil. So we need to concern ourselves with this one at the moment, which is the oscillator, and that says UC3. I'm lucky that I do actually have a drawing of the layout of the adjustments. Now there's those 2 intermediate frequency. There's UC3, which was the oscillator. So that's that one there, and I think UC2 was the coil for the antenna, yes, or the adjustment. So UC2. So those 2 there. So we'll trim that or adjust that, and we'll trim this to get maximum signal. I have the generator on 100. I'll make it 101, and that'll clear that local station. So if I turn it up, there it is there. So it's down a little bit. It should be up here. Now I decided this adjustment was the oscillator. I'll move the dial slightly away or towards where I want to go, and follow it up with the adjustment. And that's right on about 101 there. Come on. There he goes. This oscillator coil should be wound so accurately that me adjusting at one end should be perfect when I go down the other end. So I'll go and put it on 80, let's see, what have we got? 87.5, we'll try that. So it's right on 87.5. I'll put the meter on 87.5 and turn it up. Nothing. No. No, it's up there. So it's not going to work doing that. What I'll do is put it on 93. We'll adjust it there, and it'll be out at each end. But at 93, it'll be perfect. Oh, there's 93 there. So generator on 93. Oops. I'll do that. Right. I'll see where it is. And it's just short. Alright, I'll pull that up. Just adjust this again until we hear it. That'll do. Alright, so now that's going to be average. It'll be a bit short here, a bit short there. In the middle area, it'll be pretty close. I should point out something about this FM module. When you adjust the FM like that, this is pushing in and out the slug inside the coil for the induction tuning. And you can adjust this little fitting here, lift this up and down, and that will change the stroke length in and out of the coil. So you can narrow or widen the tuning length on the front scale there just by moving this little fitting up and down. Next thing to do is just make sure the antenna inductor is lined up with the oscillator one. I'll turn that up. I'll just peak this. I think that's about it there. I'll leave it like that. I'm not going to do any more. So our station should now be here somewhere. So it's just above the 100. There's 101. That's about right. 1.3. Okay, that's about spot on. I think I'll end this part of the video here. It is working, and it's working quite well. I'm quite happy with the way it's performing. I still have to address the selenium rectifier, and these resistors, the one I pulled out yesterday was over 20% and one was on 20%. So I'll go through and make sure there's none that are grossly out of tolerance. But I'll do that during the week. I won't bore you with looking at those. So in the next video I'll address the selenium rectifier, the case, the little grill there, it needs to be RetrObrighted, the back panel, and I'll put it all back together and it should look nice. So I hope you enjoyed what I did this week, and I hope you can join me next time for my next radio adventure.